Not surprisingly, the first question most interruption marketers ask when they hear about permission marketing is, so, how do you get people to sign up? Because they were trained in the art of getting momentary reactions from large numbers of people, this part of the process is the most familiar to them. Permission marketing almost always follows the same simple steps. Each campaign is very different, but the concepts behind each step remain the same. Simply stated, you interrupt consumers with a message designed to get them to raise their hand. That's the way they volunteer or say yes to begin a rewarding exchange of information accomplished over time, which builds trust that you can leverage into a sales relationship. But the first step is still to interrupt the consumer. That's one reason there will always be socially acceptable interruption marketing media. We need to get that initial attention. Joanne Cates is the third-generation owner of Camp Arawan, the oldest co-ed summer camp in North America. With a 70-year history, great word of mouth, and a solid backlist, acquiring new customers is not her highest priority. Nonetheless, Arawan needs a process to turn strangers into campers. The camp uses permission marketing to accomplish this. The first step is to advertise at camp fairs and in magazines that feature groups of ads from summer camp. But unlike virtually all of her competitors, Joanne isn't trying to sell her camp. She knows that no one chooses a summer camp for their children on the basis of a 2-inch square black and white advertisement. Instead, her only goal in the ad and at that trade show is to get permission to send a video and a brochure. The ad sells the brochure, not the camp. Call the camp's number, and her staff will immediately qualify your interest and then send a video, perhaps the best produced camp video in the market, and the brochure, also extremely well done. The only goal of the video is to get permission to have a personal meeting. It doesn't sell the camp, it sells the meeting. Now, fully qualified and having seen the testimonials, the photographs, the facilities, and the happy campers, the family is ready to be sold on the camp, and that's done in person. Once a camper attends for a summer, odds are that he or she will stay for more summers and bring a brother or sister along as well, which makes the sale worth nearly $20,000. By using permission marketing, Arawan is able to make these significant step-by-step sales with a very high efficiency. At each step, the only goal of the next step is to expand permission. She interrupts to get permission to send a video using a small print ad. She uses the video to get permission to visit. She uses the visit to get permission to sell one summer, and she uses one summer to sell 6 more. By focusing media on getting permission instead of making the ultimate sale, marketers are able to get far more out of their expenditures. The response rate to a free sample, or an affinity program, or a birthday club might be 5 or 10 times the response rate of an ad asking for a sale. This is a critical distinction. Step 2 in the process, after the consumer has been interrupted, is to make an offer and ask for volunteers. The offer should provide selfish motivation and offer virtually no downside to the consumer. An interrupted consumer won't fill out a long demographic form or get in his car to drive down to your auto mall. The less you ask of the consumer and the bigger the bribe, the more likely the consumer will give you permission. The permission won't be broad or deep, but it will guarantee that your next interaction will be significantly more impactful. In order to make the marketing messages you send relevant and personal, you need to get some data. Permission marketers are totally obvious about their objectives with the consumer. They make it crystal clear what they will be doing with the data they collect and exactly why it's beneficial to the consumer to give this data. The reward you offer a consumer must be obvious and simple. To dramatize the importance of this stage, to make it crasser than it needs to be, I call it bait. No one would argue with the idea that when you go fishing, you ought to use the most effective, most obvious bait you can find. The same is true when you try to attract consumers. After you've interrupted, engaged in a bargain, and exchanged data with the consumer, you need to teach and eventually leverage the permission you've obtained. If you're in a medium where frequency is cheap, like the Internet, take your time. Build trust through frequency. Tell your story patiently to each consumer who is willing to participate in the exchange. Be personal. Be relevant. Be specific. And always be anticipated. Anticipation, of course, is even better than expectation. Without surprising the consumer, gradually raise the level of permission you extract. Then, by constantly raising the magnitude of rewards you offer the prospect, you can fight attrition and compression and keep the consumer interested. By continuing the dialogue, you can teach the consumer until a stranger becomes a friend, and then a friend becomes a customer. Of course, the process doesn't end with the first sale. It just becomes one-to-one marketing. Using the permission already granted, you then work hard to expand the share of wallet and build a permission asset that is ever deeper and more powerful. Permission that's built, of course, on trust. Where does trust come from? This is what every marketer wants to know. Without trust, marketers know that there are no sales. Trust means the prospect believes not only that the product being sold will actually solve his problems, but that if for some reason it doesn't, the company will make good on its reputation of performance. Pan Am demonstrated the power of trust when it sold its brand name a few years ago. An airline with no airplanes, no employees, no gates, not even any little packages of peanuts, sold its trusted name and logo for millions of dollars. If trust is the objective, what are the tactics? How do some marketers manage to build trust while others are doomed to languish in obscurity? Before a marketer can build trust, it must breed familiarity. But there's no familiarity without awareness. And awareness, the science of letting people know you exist and getting them to understand your message, can't happen effectively in today's environment without advertising. When advertising agencies measure their campaigns, they look at reach and frequency. Reach is a fairly simple metric. How many different people were exposed to each ad? Frequency, as we'll see in a moment, involves some more artful measurements, but it is the advertiser's single most important tactic. Muhammad Ali didn't become heavyweight champ of the world by punching 20 people one time each. No, he became the champ by punching one guy 20 times until he fell down. By applying frequency to the poor opponent's head, Ali was able to bring his message home. Advertising works the same way. Advertisers know that the single best way to make an advertising campaign work is to run the ads a lot. By all means, be sure to reach every possible consumer. But it's far more important to deliver advertising with frequency. Drill it home again and again. The frequency you bring to an advertising campaign does two things. First, it cuts through the clutter with the sheer law of averages. If only 10% of the people remember your ad tomorrow, but your ad runs for 30 days in a row, sooner or later, virtually everyone will remember it. Second, frequency causes the consumer to focus on the message you're trying to get across. Just as repeating yourself to a 4-year-old makes it more likely that he'll get the idea you're trying to communicate, just as repeating commands to a horse in training is more likely to change the horse's behavior, repeating yourself to a target consumer increases the odds that your message gets through. But in spite of this obvious truth, many unseasoned marketers, given the choice between reach and frequency, make the mistake of going for reach. They argue that touching 100 people with a brilliant ad is more effective than reaching 25 people 4 times each. This approach seems encouraging, but research has shown it to be wrong. And here's why it's wrong. Imagine you have a packet with 100 flower seeds in it. Also pretend you've been given 100 watering cans, each filled with just enough water to soak one seed for a few days. It seems as though you could do one of two things. You could plant all 100 seeds and then water each seed one time. My guess is that every single seed would then fail to grow. Or you could plant just 20 seeds and then throw the other 80 seeds in the trash. Water each of the 20 seeds 5 times over the course of a week, and you'd probably end up with 20 flowers.